Good night. My name is Norma Ruiz, and my speech will be based on the Equal Opportunities Draft Legislation 2020. Have you ever felt excluded, judged, or even discriminated before? Maybe it was because of your gender, religion, ethnicity, political view, or even your sexuality. Maybe it was a nasty look at the store, or something bigger like exclusion from an employment opportunity. If you have, then you know what I'm talking about, and you know the feeling is not a very nice one. Well, that feeling of exclusion, solitude, shame, or even uselessness is how some of our Belizean brothers and sisters feel on a daily basis as they are discriminated against simply for being their true selves or for even having a disease which they have no control over. Belizeans living with HIV or a particular disability and those who belong to the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ community are silently judged and even outwardly discriminated against on a daily basis. Whether it's knowingly or even unintentionally, we, and I include myself, can be a bit closed-minded, unreceptive, and even conservative to issues which may be new or unknown. In 2020, the government of Belize presented an extensive 87-page draft legislation entitled Equal Opportunities Bill. This proposed piece of legislation, as described by the then government of Belize, sought to promote equal opportunities and to address discrimination, stigma, and violence by prohibiting certain forms of conduct and encouraging proactive steps to be taken to address unjust disparities and barriers in order to promote the core Belizean values of fairness, respect, and justice. The bill was endorsed by the National AIDS Commission, the Ministry of Human Development, Social Transformation, Poverty Alleviation, and the Office of the Special Envoy for Women and Children. When presented to the Belizean populace in January of 2020, the language present in the bill came under attack amid complaints that it was being rushed and time was needed for more consultations. So consultations were held across the country. However, by the end of a nationwide education campaign, the bill was ultimately rejected by the masses, particularly by the religious community, as outlined by then Prime Minister of Belize, Dean Barrow, in a media interview on September 16, 2020, where he stated, and I quote, "We're not going to go against all the churches, the evangelicals plus the Belize Council of Churches," end quote. The Equal Opportunities Bill, while it was extensive and complicated to understand, carried crucial components which are very much needed in our society if we are to ever accomplish equity for all. The Equal Opportunities Bill sought to deter discrimination, whether by making a distinction, creating an exclusion, or showing difference in treatment against a person based on age, disability, family responsibilities, gender, breastfeeding, gender identity, HIV positive status, irrelevant criminal record, lawful sexual activity, marital status, maternity, political opinion, pregnancy, race, religious belief, sex, sexual orientation, victim of domestic violence, or status as an orphan. Looking predominantly at persons with a positive HIV status, this bill would have been extremely beneficial in stopping discrimination in areas of employment and education. If implemented, the Equal Opportunities Bill would have made it an offense to require a person with an HIV positive status to disclose his or her diagnosis when applying for a job or educational opportunities. Requiring a person's HIV status for these reasons not only constitutes as full-blown discrimination, but also leads to more judgments from colleagues. HIV stigma and discrimination can affect the emotional well-being and mental health of people living with HIV. This is why people living with HIV often internalize the stigma they experience and begin to develop a negative self-image. They may fear they will be discriminated against or judged if their HIV status is revealed. Now, Belize has done a lot when it comes to inclusion for persons living with disabilities. Just recently, the Orange Walk Town Council, under the leadership of Deputy Mayor Dorette Pascasio, inaugurated the very first disability swing at the Central Park here in Orange Walk Town. This project alone shows the overwhelming efforts being carried out to ensure equity for persons living with disability, especially our children. Now, imagine if the Equal Opportunities Bill was enacted in Belize back in 2020 and the hundreds of benefits that it would result for persons living with special needs. Common human rights like education and employment would be more accessible if candidates are not discriminated simply for having a disability. Here is an interesting fact that not many Belizeans may be aware of, and that is that many, if not all, of the public transportations available in our country do not cater for persons who are confined to a wheelchair. Imagine not being able to travel in a public bus or taxi because you are in a wheelchair. These are some of the core issues that are intended to be rectified through the implementation of the Equal Opportunities Bill. Perhaps the most victimized group of individuals in our countries are those belonging to the LGBTQ community. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender persons in Belize face threats, insults, and even physical attack despite a Supreme Court declaration back in 2016 which decriminalized same-sex sexual activity in our country. Now, the Equal Opportunities Bill was not centered around the LGBTQ community. It was one of the main reasons for opposition, particularly by the religious group, however. The Equal Opportunities Bill would allow anyone the opportunity to make a complaint against a person or organization which they feel has done them wrong through any form of discrimination. Holding people to account for their action outside a court setting in the first instance is perhaps one of the best ways to help promote equality among our society. The way the bill works is that once a complaint is filed, it is forwarded to a tribunal first, whose primary job is to attempt to mediate a solution between the aggrieved and aggressor before taking further steps which would then ultimately conclude in a court of law if all other attempts are futile. When access to opportunities is not equitably distributed throughout society by way of discrimination towards certain groups of individuals, it can lead to social and economic disadvantages. While the Equal Opportunities was pulled back in 2020 due to backlash from the Belizean community, this bill would undoubtedly pose tremendous benefits to the marginalized population in our country. Thank you.